In the 8th year of our relationship, I took a knife for my boyfriend Nathan, who is a doctor. He promised that I could ask for any reward in return. Everyone thought that I would use it as an excuse to propose marriage. However, I calmly said, "Let's break up." After that, I turned around and left. But Nathan sneered and made a bet with the others. "She's just a bootlicker seeking attention. I bet that within 3 days, she'll come crying and beg me to get back together." But he was wrong. Because I had a secret. I had been reborn. In my previous life, I succeeded in proposing to him, but Nathan's first love jumped off the rooftop and committed suicide. He vented all his resentment on me. On our wedding night, he slashed my face and imprisoned me in a dark and narrow basement. After I got pregnant, he forced me to take a lot of tonics every day. By the time of delivery, the baby was so big that I couldn't give birth at all. In the end, I died of massive bleeding and a difficult childbirth. I was reborn on the day when I took the knife for Nathan. This time, I did as he wished. In the office of the surgeon, the sharp stinging pain in my arm brought my thoughts back. The nurse wrapped the last circle of bandage around my arm and gently reminded me not to get it wet in the next few days. However, Nathan, who was sitting on the office chair beside me, sneered, "It's just a scratch. Why are you being so precious now?" I didn't say anything after hearing that. The other doctors in the office also looked at each other, with subtle expressions on their faces. They were all at the scene of that medical disturbance. The person who caused the disturbance was a thug who had been released from prison the year before last. The thug was big and burly, with a fierce look on his face. The fruit knife that cut my arm was 30 centimeters long, and the wound was gaping open, with more than 20 stitches, and the thug's original target was Nathan's heart. My silence angered Nathan. He narrowed his eyes, and a layer of frost covered his handsome face. "Claire, don't be so pretentious. I said you saved me and you can ask for any reward. Are you still not satisfied? Why are you giving me that look?" I don't know since when Nathan, who grew up with me as a childhood sweetheart, talked to me, there was only the arrogance and contempt of the superior towards the inferior left. And all his tenderness was given to his first love, Lola, the orphan he sponsored during the flood relief. I withdrew my gaze from the pink rabbit hair tie on his wrist. Suppressing the sour and bitter feeling in my heart, I looked up at him and asked with a smile, "Can I ask for anything?" Nathan was stunned for a moment, not knowing what came to his mind. He glanced at the hair tie on his wrist. A hint of panic flashed in his eyes, but he quickly suppressed his emotions. He ground his back teeth a little irritably, but still nodded as if resigned, "Yes." Some of the doctors in the office were Nathan's classmates. Hearing this, they immediately started to tease, "Then Director Nathan should just marry her as promised." The others also burst out laughing. "Yes, Director Nathan. It's time for your 8-year relationship to bear fruit. I've already prepared my gift money. When's the wedding banquet?" Listening to the others teasing, I was just about to break up with Nathan. Suddenly, a little nurse rushed in and said to Nathan, "Oh no. Miss Lola is threatening to commit suicide." Another suicide attempt. If I hadn't miscalculated, this was the 108th suicide attempt by Lola, just like in my previous life. As soon as the nurse finished speaking, Nathan rushed out. He came to the rooftop of the hospital. On the rooftop, Lola's eyes were red, and her small face was pale and delicate. She was wearing Nathan's white shirt, and her legs under the shirt were fair, tender and slender. Suddenly, I remembered that she was also there when the medical disturbance happened. When I was wholeheartedly trying to protect Nathan from the knife, Nathan was firmly protecting her in his arms. She walked out of Nathan's lounge at that time, wearing this white shirt that I had given to Nathan. "Sister Claire took the knife for you. You promised Sister Claire that you could promise her any request. Sister Claire likes you so much. She will surely propose to you, and you will surely agree, right?" "Sorry, Brother Nathan. I'd rather die than lose you for the rest of my life." Lola's tears fell down one by one, making Nathan's heart ache. "Come down first. I'll explain to you when you come down." Nathan was extremely anxious, and his deep voice was full of heartache. Nathan would care about everything about Lola. Nathan said that she was a young girl who liked pink, so the pink Dior bag that was originally bought as a birthday gift for me became a reward for her passing the college final exams. She was afraid of thunder, so on countless nights, as long as she made a phone call, Nathan would rush to her side. Even once when I was attending my grandfather's funeral and there were no flights available that night, hearing Lola's crying on the other end of the phone, Nathan got really angry with me. Couldn't you have chosen a better day to die? I remembered when Nathan confessed his love to me before, he said that he would always unconditionally favor me alone. But after he met 18-year-old Lola when he was 26, all his favor was given to her. In my previous life, I was so blinded by jealousy that I ended up in a miserable situation. In this life, I don't want him anymore. My thoughts were pulled back by Lola's heartbroken sobs. She was saved by Nathan. The two of them hugged each other tightly, even their lower bodies were pressed closely together. I felt a bit nauseous for a moment. Nathan couldn't help but feel scared after the event. He trembled his thin lips and kissed the top of Lola's head again and again. Fortunately, you're okay. Lola was shaking all over from crying. Will you marry Sister Claire? If so, you might as well have let me die just now. Nathan gently wiped away the tears on her cheeks and stared at me with a gloomy and deep look in his eyes. It's just getting married. In my heart, you'll always be in the first place. Then he let out a long sigh as if he was forced to do so and lowered his eyes, saying, after all, Claire has been with me for 8 years. I don't love her anymore, but when I fell into the water back then, she saved me and was willing to follow me around like an old maid, doing all the hard work without complaining. I have to repay this kindness. As soon as he said this, everyone present was shocked. Yes, I saved Nathan who had fallen into the water back then, and then we naturally got together. But that was all a long time ago. He always thought that I was used to using the kindness I had shown him to ask for something from him. But if I had known he would turn out like this, I wouldn't have saved him either back then or now. I was a bit annoyed by the pitying looks that were frequently cast my way from around me. I sneered coldly, Nathan, I'm very busy. When are you going to fulfill your promise? Nathan sneered when he heard this, and a knowing look flashed in his eyes. He said with contempt, so eager to marry me? After that, he gently rubbed Lola's earlobe to comfort her, and then replied to me perfunctorily, tell me, when do you want to marry me? Since you've tried every means to marry me, then I'll. Nathan's words were quickly interrupted by me, let's break up. Nathan realized what I had said and suddenly looked up at me. Surprise and anger gradually gathered in his eyes. You want to break up? Ignoring the surprise in Lola's eyes, I calmly looked at Nathan with his brows tightly furrowed. Yes. What kind of trick is this? Nathan didn't believe it. He said coldly, everyone knows that you, Claire, have been pestering me like a dog since the first year of high school and couldn't be driven away. Now that you finally got a chance to marry me, but you say you want to break up with me? Claire, stop deceiving yourself, okay? You're still wearing the ring I gave you. He seemed to have found my weakness, and his brows and eyes were full of smugness, as if he was certain that I wouldn't be willing to leave him in this lifetime. However, I calmly took off the ring and casually threw it off the rooftop. Forgot about it. Thanks for reminding me. This was a birthday gift that Nathan bought for me with his first scholarship in the first year of college. Our initials were engraved on it. Once when I was in a car accident and was unconscious, I was still tightly clutching this ring in my palm. Nathan knew how much I cared about it as much as I cared about him, but now, I had thrown this ring away. Nathan's brows furrowed into a tight frown. Even so, he still didn't believe that I would break up with him. I only heard him sneer, Claire, I don't care what game you're playing, but I'm telling you, if you apologize to me now, I'll pretend that nothing has ever happened. If you still want the position of Mrs. Nathan, I'll still give it to you. I smiled faintly, Nathan, I wish you and I both can get what we want from now on. After that, I turned around and left. When I left, I only heard Lola say to Nathan, aren't you going to chase after her? Nathan sneered, no, she'll come back obediently. How could a woman who tried every means to get pregnant with my child be willing to leave? Yes, I was pregnant. That time when Nathan and Lola had a falling out and he got drunk, He mistook me for Lola and we had a crazy night. Soon after that, I got pregnant. Nathan also knew about this. In my previous life, I used the kindness I had shown him to force him to marry me, but after Lola committed suicide, he kept feeding me food. If I refused to eat, he would force me to. Over and over again, until my belly grew bigger and bigger. When I was giving birth, he didn't send me to the hospital. Until I had a difficult labor due to the big size of the baby. I still remember the pain of giving birth. It was so painful that my hands and feet trembled. I was heartbroken, my eyes were as red as blood. I used all my strength, but I just couldn't give birth. In the end, I died of massive bleeding. When I died, blood flowed all over the floor from under me, and the baby was stuck there and suffocated to death. After returning home from the hospital, I touched the little life still moving in my belly and thought, it's time to end all this. I had a sleep at home. This sleep lasted for 4 full hours. 4 hours later, I received a message from Nathan, my mother is ill. Come to my home. Nathan is an asshole, but his mother was especially sincere to me. My parents were friends with his parents in the early years, and then my parents died. Nathan's mother treated me as her own daughter and loved me dearly, but the tone of the person who sent me this message clearly didn't sound like Nathan's. I knew Nathan's writing habits too well. He never used punctuation marks when writing messages. So how could this be sent by Nathan? It was obviously sent by his sweetheart Lola. Only Lola could touch Nathan's phone without any scruples. Even though I knew it was a trap, I still went. When I arrived at the Nathan family's house and just opened the door, a basin of freezing cold water was poured over my head and onto the ground. The biting cold instantly wrapped around me, and my lower abdomen suddenly felt a sharp pain. Suddenly, there was a burst of wild laughter in the originally quiet room. When I opened my eyes, I found that there were a group of young men and women standing in the villa, looking at me with teasing eyes. And among them was Lola. Make her kneel down. Immediately, someone behind me kicked me down. Lola sneered when she heard this. Do you know how much Brother Nathan hates you? You damned woman, you secretly got pregnant with Brother Nathan's child behind my back. Then she took a bottle of strong liquor nearby. You bitch, you always use some special means to keep Brother Nathan by your side. I'm going to make you regret getting pregnant with Brother Nathan's child today. After that, Lola raised the bottle of strong liquor. Lola thought I would be afraid. But I wasn't afraid at all. Even when Lola forced me to drink the liquor, I drank it obediently. I drank the whole bottle of strong liquor without leaving a drop. I didn't want Nathan anymore, and I didn't want this child either. After drinking it, I asked Lola, is there any more? Lola cursed me as a lunatic. Then she took a curling iron that had been heated red hot nearby. She held the curling iron and pressed it towards my eyes. Just at this moment, someone shouted in horror, blood. She's bleeding a lot. The severe pain in my lower abdomen made my face as pale as paper. Lola seemed to think of something. She was only panicked for a moment and then became even more vicious. She threw away the curling iron, and then, before anyone could react, she stepped on my belly. Blood spurted out instantly. I didn't even have time to make a sound before I completely passed out. In the hospital office, Nathan was looking at the patient files. At this moment, a nurse rushed in to find him with a surgical consent form in a hurry. Dr. Nathan, something terrible has happened. Miss Claire, however, Nathan interrupted her when he heard this, I've already broken up with her. Don't mention her in front of me. The nurse was full of anxiety, but she was just brought into the hospital by ambulance. The situation is very urgent. It said that she had massive bleeding due to pregnancy. Now we need to transfer blood bags from other hospitals. Please sign the consent form quickly. Nathan gave her a casual glance, took the consent form casually, and then tore it into pieces in front of the shocked nurse. Do you think I'll believe such a clumsy lie? Claire has even bribed the people around me now. Claire loves me so much. How could she possibly abort my child? I'm telling you, even if she's dying right now, I won't sign this consent form. Nathan sneered. After saying that, he shook off the nurse's hand that was trying to pull him and walked away. In order not to let me play any more tricks to bother him, he turned on the do not disturb mode on his phone that he played until after 10 o'clock in the evening. When he turned off the do not disturb mode, more than 100 missed calls popped up all at once. Even the hospital director had called him countless times. This made him frown involuntarily. How could Claire, that woman, even bother the hospital director? She's really getting more and more shameless. Thinking about it, he dialed the hospital director's number to apologize, but the director just coldly replied, "Get back to the hospital immediately," and then hung up the phone. Nathan didn't know what was going on, but he still drove to the hospital. However, he ignored Lola's pale and uneasy look in the passenger seat. Nathan's work had always been appreciated by the hospital director. This was the first time he had been blamed by the director. He was full of anger and wanted to settle accounts with Claire, but the moment he stepped out of the elevator door, he was slapped. Nathan raised his hand to hit back, but found that it was his mother who slapped him. He was stunned. "Mom? Why are you here?" Nathan's mother's eyes were red and swollen, and she almost roared at Nathan, "You beast! Why didn't you sign the consent form? Do you know that because of you, Claire had a miscarriage and massive bleeding, and because the rescue was not in time, her uterus was even removed?" Before Nathan could react, the policeman waiting nearby came forward with a video on their mobile phones. In the video, my white dress was dyed scarlet, and I was lying on a stretcher, unconscious. The amount of bleeding was so large that the stretcher was also stained red. The moment Nathan saw it clearly, his pupils suddenly shrank, and what the policeman said next nailed Nathan to the spot. "Mr. Nathan, we've investigated and found that the mastermind who hurt your fiancée is Miss Lola beside you." What? Nathan was dumbfounded. His handsome face was full of disbelief and horror. How could Claire have a miscarriage? She loves me so much and wants to marry me so much. How could she let herself have a miscarriage? This is fake. This is fake. The hospital director nearby signaled the nurse to help up Nathan's mother, who was about to faint from crying, and then walked up to Nathan, saying with a tone of disappointment, "Claire got hurt trying to protect you. And this is how you repay her. You've really disappointed me. From today on, you're suspended from work. The hospital doesn't need a cold-blooded and ungrateful doctor like you." Nathan's face was pale. He ignored the suspension notice from the director and kept grabbing the nurse who had asked him to sign and asked, "Where's Claire? Where is she?" That nurse shook off Nathan's hand in disgust and said coldly, "Miss Claire was maliciously kicked in the lower abdomen. Not only was her uterus completely damaged, but her internal organs were also injured. Because the blood bags arrived too late, a death notice was even issued once. Now she's barely survived and is in a coma in the intensive care unit." Nathan's lips were trembling, and his eyes were red as he rushed towards the intensive care unit. "Claire, don't be in trouble. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I was wrong. I shouldn't have." Slap. Another crisp slap. Nathan's mother scolded angrily, "Beast, what's the use of regretting now? Where were you before?" Nathan was in a daze and subconsciously replied, "Be before, I." Nathan stammered, trying to defend himself, but couldn't say anything. This time, Lola had been controlled by the police. She had tears in her eyes and looked at Nathan with her big, innocent eyes. She trembled and asked for help. "Brother Nathan, save me." She was full of love for Nathan, who doted on her. Perhaps the confidence gained from being favored for the past 4 years gave her the illusion that no matter what she did to me, she would be forgiven. This time, she just made me lose my uterus and child. It's no big deal. I'm an orphan who was raised by my grandfather after my parents died. As long as Nathan stepped in, the police couldn't do anything to her. Thinking of this, a look of satisfaction flashed in Lola's eyes. Seeing that Nathan was staring straight at her, she thought Nathan was thinking of a way to help her, so she squeezed out a few more tears and made her expression even more pitiful. She bit her lower lip and asked for help in a delicate voice, "Brother Nathan, I'm scared." She knew that Nathan in the past had no resistance to her in this state. Because Nathan had said that she looked like Claire, who was 18 years old in his memory, when she was like this. Sure enough, Nathan moved. "Save me, I'm innocent." Lola was full of expectation, but what she got was a fierce kick from Nathan in the chest, which made her face turn pale with pain. "Lola, why?" Nathan was like a fierce beast, becoming hysterical because his beloved was hurt. "Why did you hurt her?" Lola was in a panic, but she quickly came to her senses and cried even more bitterly, I'm sorry, brother Nathan. Because Sister Claire called me a bitch who was seducing you, and Sister Claire even threatened to kill me. I was so scared. I didn't mean to kick her. I'm sorry. You can punish me however you want. I'm also willing to go to jail to atone for my sins. As long as you're willing to forgive me, I'm willing to atone for my sins by dying." Then she suddenly rushed towards the wall when the police weren't paying attention. She was tightly hugged by Nathan, who had reacted in time. His anger had disappeared when Lola started to explain. He had just kicked her to put on a show for the police. Yeah, Lola was such a simple girl. It must be Claire, that woman, who bullied her, and she couldn't bear it and fought back. Thinking of this, Nathan felt a bit scared after the event and hugged Lola into his arms, constantly comforting her. Don't be afraid, Lola. I wrongly blamed you. Don't worry. I'll use the best legal team to defend you." A look of satisfaction flashed in Lola's eyes. She buried her head in Nathan's arms and sobbed, "Thank goodness you're here." On the fourth day after this farce happened, I woke up. Nathan's mother told me everything. Despite her objections, Nathan was determined to protect Lola and even blocked her and Nathan's father. Even though he was suspended from the hospital, he still wholeheartedly found the best legal team to defend Lola. "Claire, it's our Nathan family who has let you down. Don't worry. Auntie will seek justice for you even if it costs her this old life." Nathan's mother seemed to have aged nearly 20 years, and Nathan's father beside her even had his hair turn completely white overnight. However, I was surprisingly calm inside. The tragic ending in my previous life had already made me resistant and scared of having children. Now that I had lost my fertility, perhaps it wasn't such a bad thing. Weakly lying on the hospital bed, I said to Nathan's mother in a hoarse voice, "Thank you, Mrs. Nathan." Just this address, Mrs. Nathan, almost made Nathan's mother faint. Because in the past 20 years, I had always called her Mom Nathan. She understood that no matter how hard we tried, there would never be a way back for Nathan and me. On the day I was discharged from the hospital, Nathan's father and mother submitted a thick stack of evidence to the police, and formally filed a lawsuit against Lola. Nathan was a good-looking doctor who was quite famous online and had millions of fans, and in order to make Lola win the lawsuit, he even took the lead in exposing a lot of my negative information online. While I was in a coma, I was spread all over the internet as a disgusting woman who was keen on competing with innocent young girls in a catty way. Therefore, on the day when the case was heard in court, the auditorium was full of people. I was pushed into the courtroom in a wheelchair by Nathan's mother. The moment Nathan and I looked at each other, he pursed his lips tightly, with a cold and hard expression on his face. Nathan's mother told me that he believed Lola's words completely and always thought that she had hurt me just because she was defending herself. I knew that. Because before the trial started, Nathan had sent me a message. "My parents are so muddle-headed that they were deceived by a villain like you. I've already asked the others who were present that day. It was because you slapped Lola first that she pushed you away. And then you were unlucky and fell down by stepping on a wine bottle yourself. It had nothing to do with Lola at all." I wasn't angry and just replied, "You're sick and need treatment." This made Nathan block me. When the trial began, Lola, as always, looked weak and pitiful, trembling on the defendant's bench with tears in her eyes. This made the audience present feel so sorry for her. Nathan even submitted the testimonies of all the people present that day to show that Lola was innocent. He even tried to use the power of public opinion and launched a vote through his own account. Nearly over 1 million netizens thought that Lola was innocent. With the support of the public, Nathan and Lola seemed to be sure that they would win. On our side, however, Nathan's father and mother just gave their son a cold look and then handed a disc to the lawyer to submit. The lawyer played the video in the disc in public. At just one glance, Lola almost fainted. I end the video. it was clearly the scene where she kicked my belly hard. Looking at the scene in the video where Lola didn't stop even when I was bleeding heavily under me, Nathan went completely crazy. The whole internet and all the audience present went crazy too. Lola shouted in fear, "It's fake. It's all fake." At this time, a plainly dressed girl came to the witness stand. She was among the people Lola had found to teach me a lesson. But she didn't take any action from beginning to end and just quietly recorded the video. I provided the video and I'm willing to be responsible for the authenticity of the material, the girl said in a deep voice, with hatred in her eyes when looking at Lola. When she approached Nathan's mother, she only said one sentence: "Lola bullied my sister and made her jump off the building." Besides this conclusive evidence, Nathan's father and mother used all their connections and found out the truth about how Lola's parents were washed away by the flood. Because her parents wanted her to apologize and atone for her sins to the poor girl she had bullied, before the flood came, she gave her parents a large amount of sleeping pills. And then she sneaked away, and the girl who suffered from mental illness because of being bullied by Lola was exactly the good friend of the girl on the witness stand. Lola was dumbfounded. Nathan was shocked all over. Nathan's father and mother almost dug up everything about Lola. Besides bullying classmates, she was also vain and money-worshipping. After being sponsored by Nathan, she began to squander money. Whenever Nathan was on a business trip, she would use Nathan's card to bribe her classmates. She even took them to underground casinos. She cooperated with the casino bosses and took some of her classmates from relatively wealthy families to the casinos. And for the money those classmates lost after getting addicted to gambling, she would take a 10% cut. That's why there were so many friends helping her on the day when she bullied me. Those were all the poor students she threatened and controlled with the threat of exposing their gambling behavior. Once this incident came to light, the whole internet exploded. That underground casino was directly shut down. It was said that the casino boss had offered $1 million on the dark web to buy Lola's hands, and what made the audience present even more shocked was that Lola herself was a gambler with tens of millions of gambling debts. And while she was with Nathan, she also maintained an ambiguous bed relationship with nearly 7 rich second-generation heirs who were either married or in a relationship. After the scandalous photos were released, Lola completely collapsed and fell onto the seats of the audience. And Nathan, with a green light on his head, had a livid face. He ground his back teeth and stared at Lola viciously. "You bitch." The trial ended. Lola's reputation was completely ruined. She was sentenced to 5 years in prison for multiple crimes. Other people related to this case and other cases were also sentenced. Nathan didn't commit a crime, but he completely lost his job. He became the disgusting scumbag that was cursed by the whole internet, and I also became the most pitiful original partner that the whole internet felt sorry for. Since Lola was sentenced, Nathan had become like a sticky plaster that couldn't be driven away no matter how hard I tried, always following behind me. Nathan's father and mother were so disappointed in him that they cut off all ties with him. He kept changing numbers to apologize to me, and it was useless even if I blocked him again and again. Until the day before I went abroad, the buyer of my school district house contacted me, saying that there was a man claiming to be my fiancé squatting outside his house and couldn't be driven away no matter what. I had no choice but to go and see Nathan. When I arrived, he was dirty all over. It seemed that he hadn't taken good care of himself for a long time. He had lost a lot of weight, with dark circles under his eyes, and his stubble and hair were greasy and messy. When he saw me, his eyes instantly turned red. He stood there at a loss, like a child who had made a big mistake. "Claire," his voice was very hoarse. According to Nathan's mother, after he was driven out of the house, because he was so famous and became an outcast on the internet, someone put something in his drinking water and his voice was completely ruined. I didn't show any expression when I heard these words. Just like when I faced him at this moment, "You shouldn't stay here anymore. It will affect other people's lives." However, Nathan burst into tears. He wiped his tears and wailed loudly, "I'm sorry, honey. I'm so sorry to you. But why are you selling this house? There are so many beautiful memories of us two here." I curved my lips into a smile. Nathan thought I had changed my mind. His wailing froze, and a glimmer of expectation flashed in his eyes. But then he heard me say, "For you, they are beautiful memories. But for me, the things you did to hurt me for Lola's sake only made this originally nice house seem more like hell." Nathan was struck as if by lightning. He hunched his tall body, as if he had completely lost hope. I sighed and lost my last bit of patience. "Please do me a favor and don't bother me anymore. I really, really dislike you now." With just this one sentence, I completely cut off Nathan's hope. After that day, Nathan really didn't show up beside me again. 6 years had passed when I returned to China after further studies abroad. I hadn't lost contact with Nathan's father and mother over the years. This time when I returned to China, I was thinking of taking care of them in their old age. Perhaps because they were completely disappointed in their eldest son, they adopted another daughter a few years ago. She was especially well-behaved, sensible and kind. With their daughter's company, Nathan's father and mother were in a much better mood. They even looked a lot younger. I also liked this younger sister very much. Since she got the first place in the final exam, I promised to buy her a puppy as a gift. There happened to be a pet store at the entrance of the community. After my sister went into the store, she was dazzled by so many choices. Because I'm allergic to cat hair, I waited for her outside the store. But then I saw that the man prescribing medicine for patients in a small clinic next door looked a bit familiar. There was just a hideous scar on his face, and his left leg seemed to be lame. Subconsciously, I turned around. The moment he met my gaze, he covered his face with his hand and fled in a panic. I felt a bit puzzled. The clerk in the pet store beside me kindly explained to me, "That's Uncle Mute. He opened a small clinic next to our store last year. It said that he was also a doctor when he was young, but it seemed that he was fired because he made a mistake. His medical skills are quite good, but it seems that his voice is damaged. Oh, last year he also married a wife who had just been released from prison. But that wife's face was disfigured. It seemed that she had suffered retribution for doing too many bad things. Oh, they are really strange. They quarreled and cursed each other all day long. In serious cases, they even dragged knives to fight each other. That Uncle Mute always scolded his wife as a disgusting bitch and a jinx, blaming her for making him in such a miserable state now." The clerk kept talking, but I didn't reply. At this time, my sister happily walked out with the dog she had chosen. I then went in to pay the bill. But just after I paid the bill, I heard my sister's scream outside. I rushed out immediately and found that my sister was unharmed. However, a homicide had happened in the small clinic not far away. I quickly covered my sister's eyes. In the clinic, a thug with bloodshot eyes stabbed the man under him fiercely with a knife, and the man lying in a pool of blood was Uncle Mute, Nathan with a disfigured face. The thug went crazy. After stabbing Nathan more than 10 times, he pulled out the bloody fruit knife and walked towards Lola, who was so scared that she wet her pants several meters away. A week later, the police issued a notice. Nathan and Lola were stabbed to death on the spot, and the reason for the homicide was a medical dispute. Nathan had prescribed the correct medicine for the murderer's wife, but Lola had a quarrel with the murderer's wife when she went to buy vegetables at her stall, and she also had an affair with the murderer himself. So she deliberately changed the medicine when his wife came to get an injection. As a result, the murderer's wife died when she went back, and she was pregnant at that time. It was the precious son that the murderer had been longing for all his life. So the murderer went crazy. After Lola sent a text message to his wife triumphantly, provoking her that she was an old and ugly woman who couldn't keep her man, the murderer picked up the fruit knife for cutting watermelons beside him. With bloodshot eyes, he walked towards Nathan's clinic.